I mean, you know, in the news now, you know, with these parties that the government, the people in charge were breaking the rules, having these parties in their lovely gardens. I think I've been naive all my life. It's not till now I just go, why do we trust them? Of course we shouldn't trust the people in charge. That's how they're in charge. They shouldn't be trusted.
What happens when you mix cutting British wit, a barrage of unapologetic truth, and a politician struggling to stay upright? It's not a debate, it's a demolition. Ricky Gervais lit up Starmer like a spotlight he never asked for, and there was nothing celebratory about it. From precision strikes disguised as punchlines to relentless, no-holds-barred roasting, Gervais applied pressure without pause, leaving Starr staring into the distance like he'd walked into an advanced lecture completely unprepared. This wasn't a clash of ideas, it was a showcase in timing, control, and verbal dominance, and by the end of it, one man owned the stage while the other clearly felt the burn.
The worst thing is, as well, apart from the pandemic and the devastation and the deaths and the strain on the health service and people losing their livelihoods and that, the worst thing is the in charge do what they want. And you know what, I can you know, I see all these people saying
Keir Starmer is the sort of man who walks into a pub quiz and manages to turn "What's the capital of France?" into a 12-step policy briefing, confident, composed, and somehow still circling the wrong answer. He's like autocorrect with ambition, polished, self-assured, and consistently misfiring at exactly the wrong moment. Slightly rigid, faintly awkward, and unwavering even when he's off target, he delivers mistakes with the certainty of a man reading from invisible notes. And somehow, that's just the warm-up. This isn't ordinary political underperformance, it's refined, credentialed mediocrity, wrapped in legal language and served with all the comfort and charisma of dry, unbuttered toast.
When are we going to stop taking went to Eton as a qualification to run the country? I mean, now.
While the world feels like it's tilting off its axis, Keir Starmer seems locked on a different mission, triangulating so aggressively he risks folding himself into a geometric diagram. One minute he's echoing the language of reform, the next he's quietly assuring financial heavyweights over dinner that no sudden shocks are on the horizon. It's politics served lukewarm, carefully balanced so the affluent stay comfortable, and the headlines in the Daily Mail don't erupt in alarm. He campaigns like a man mildly apologizing for the inconvenience, and governs like someone convinced structural hardship can be resolved with a neatly labeled pie chart and a measured, steady tone.
Starmer's premiership is now at 13% approval rating, the lowest approval rating of any Prime Minister in
Ricky Gervais, a man who's built an empire dismantling the gloriously self-important, would take one look at Keir Starmer and see nothing but prime material, transforming what might have been rivalry into something closer to public service. If Starmer had a dating profile, Gervais wouldn't just swipe left, he'd critique the biography, the punctuation, and the ambition in one brutal punchline. This is the kind of politician who could spend half a year designing a meticulous 10-point plan to reconnect with voters, only to lose them all by repeating the words so often it starts sounding like an apology tour. In the hands of a comic who thrives on exposing inflated seriousness, that blend of polish and predictable misfire isn't just satire, it's a masterclass waiting to happen.
Oh dear, it really went wrong for Keir Starmer this week after he addressed workers at a factory and mentioned Nigel Farage some 16 times.
And I'm speaking out today in relation to Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage, Nigel Farage, Nigel Farage, Farage, Nigel 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 Farage.
Embarrassing! Things went from bad to worse. The press, who have historically given him a free ride, which is, I believe, part of the reason why we are where we are.
Ricky Gervais carries more voltage in a single raised eyebrow than Keir Starmer projects in an entire press conference. Where Gervais commands a room with a pause and a smirk, Starmer's idea of intensity is a careful blink mid-sentence, as if that alone might pass for emphasis. If charisma were fuel, one could power a stadium for days, the other would struggle to light a desk lamp. He walks in and the atmosphere dips, like someone arriving at a celebration clutching a spreadsheet instead of a gift. You'd expect a leader of the opposition to actually oppose, yet he handles rival policies with the delicacy of fine china, measured, cautious, and ever aware of the headlines in the News UK orbit. It's like watching a mime debate a brick wall while apologizing for the disturbance. Gervais doesn't need to shout or swing, he simply observes, smiles, and lets the hesitation speak for itself. Under that spotlight, Starmer seems to buckle beneath his own carefully dampened rhetoric, a politician so wary of firm conviction he treats it like a risk assessment. Promises flow freely, delivery less so, campaigning like the terms and conditions of a new phone update, long, polished, and quietly forgotten once you scroll past.
Trade Britain's fishermen. He sold them out to the European Union. He's concluded a Swiss-style agreement with the European Union, which effectively, by one man, by the fiat of one Prime Minister, has reversed the decision of 17.4 million people in the Brexit referendum in 2016.
You'd expect the leader of the opposition to actually oppose something, yet Keir Starmer treats confrontation like it carries a hazard sign, handling conservative policy as if it were a priceless antique, careful, cautious, and always with one eye drifting toward the influence of Rupert Murdoch just to be safe. It's like watching a mime debate a brick wall, and then apologize for raising the volume. Meanwhile, Ricky Gervais can sense that hesitation from across the studio without lifting his voice, a subtle grin, a slow eyebrow raise, and the uncertainty does the rest. He doesn't need a tirade, he simply narrates, and the contrast becomes the punchline. Under that quiet spotlight, Starmer seems to fold into his own overcautious rhetoric, a politician so wary of firm conviction that even the hint of industrial action sounds like a risk assessment meeting. He's perfected the art of promising everything in theory and delivering little in practice, campaigning like the terms and conditions on a new phone update, lengthy, polished, and instantly forgotten once you scroll past.
Second largest city. That's not control, it's chaos.
I think the bigger you are, the more you can say what you want. I think we're coming out of it now, but there's been a good few years of ordinary people not being able to say what they want. And some, actors and comedians and artists get in trouble, but I suppose I'm at the stage where I can ignore it and still do and say what I want. So that's good. I mean, free speech is amazing anyway, isn't it? But to have such a platform.
Keir Starmer might be the first leader to unveil a manifesto seemingly printed in disappearing ink. Blink and the bold pledge has quietly evaporated. One week he sounds resolute on public ownership, the next, that certainty wilts faster than lettuce in the fridge of Liz Truss. Ask him for a straight answer and you can almost hear the internal polling algorithms whirring, recalculating the safest possible reply, like calling customer service and being routed through 17 departments only to learn the policy has been updated. He's the political equivalent of a buffering icon, forever loading while the audience waits. The whole brand feels engineered around spreadsheets, neutral suits, and the emotional spark of a toast rack, as if the path to Downing Street were paved with data tables alone. And when Ricky Gervais begins to circle, it stops feeling like satire and starts resembling field research, calmly studying a figure so relentlessly beige he makes plain porridge seem like high drama.
Moving to warfighting readiness as the central purpose of our armed forces. When we are being directly threatened by states with advanced military forces, the most effective way to deter them is to be ready. And frankly, to show them that we're ready. To deliver peace through strength. Every part of society, every citizen of this country has a role to play.
You know the script has flipped when Ricky Gervais, the man famous for roasting millionaire actors mid-acceptance speech, ends up doing the heavy lifting the official opposition won't touch, not out of ambition but out of necessity, while Keir Starmer hesitates like a frozen screensaver waiting for a software update. As rivals make bold splashes, he's reportedly still weighing whether public ownership of utilities might unsettle a focus group. His signature counterpunch lands as a carefully rehearsed line about measured steps and evidence-based reviews, which often sounds less like conviction and more like a plea for quiet civility. Gervais doesn't rant, he dissects, stripping back the polished language and exposing the vacuum beneath it. When the promised alternative to disorder feels this colorless, satire stops being a sideshow and starts resembling civic duty, and in that arena, Gervais delivers with clinical, unflinching precision.
Endure it as a ginger. So I've got one up there. I've seen firsthand the difference that makes, and so has Keir. We grew up in different ends of the country and at different times. Not too different. But we endured the same insecurities and hardship that so many working people face. I guess the one difference is, though, I had to endure it as a ginger.
Ricky Gervais doesn't just highlight the absurdity, he amplifies it with a knowing grin, sizing up Keir Starmer with forensic precision and finding little more than polished emptiness. No spark, no gravity, just a well-tailored vacuum occupying space. Searching for genuine emotion in Starmer feels like trying to stream Netflix through a potato, technically possible, but deeply unsatisfying. Ask for passion and you half expect a consultation paper before a response. He's mastered the craft of saying almost nothing in the most elaborately structured way, sentences assembled like they were drafted by a government-issued chatbot trained exclusively on public service leaflets. In striving not to unsettle anyone, he somehow unsettles everyone. The left doubts his resolve, the right questions his strength, and the elusive center watches as though he's a placeholder awaiting a firmer presence. And in that vacuum, Gervais doesn't need to invent punchlines, he simply describes the scene, and the contrast does the rest.
And got, what's his name? Keir Starmer, sir. That bastard excused Jimmy Savile. He's the one who signed off and said there wasn't enough evidence. That bastard is going to be the prime minister. So a guy who literally, who signed off and said not enough evidence of the man what we now know, Sir Jimmy Savile, who 500 while being greeted by the Queen and, BBC covering. Keir Starmer, is this acceptable? I'll tell you what, I'd rather die in the fight than bow to...
Keir Starmer could hold a press conference in a hurricane and somehow radiate less energy than the gale itself. Every word, every gesture, perfectly calibrated to beige. His mood, message, wardrobe, even his aura, all shades of safe, all shades of bland. Swap him out for a laminated diagram, and most voters wouldn't notice. No one votes for a walking spreadsheet unless they've completely surrendered on ambition, warmth, and basic human connection, which is exactly the moment Ricky Gervais arrives and can't stop laughing. Once, leadership meant bold ideas, daring visions, maybe even taking a stand. Starmer's version is a community notice board, cautious, laminated, mostly ignored, handling decisions like radioactive material, circling topics for weeks before finally issuing his stance with all the excitement of a man realizing he forgot to staple his paperwork.
One of the worst prime ministers we've ever had, and he's only been with us 81 days. But look what he's done in those 81 days. He's allowed the Chancellor to go ahead with a scheme where 4,000 pensioners could freeze to death this winter, and those are Labour figures, by the way, not Tory figures, okay. He's introduced a raft of policies like energy, which could make us dependent on overseas energy ad infinitum, so dictators around the world will control what we have in this country. Never mind the sleaze. I mean, goodness gracious, he stood up in the Commons once, looked across the box at Boris Johnson and said, sleaze.
When Ricky J turns his focus on this walking emblem of blandness, it isn't mockery, it's public accountability. Picture being on a plane in flames while the pilot calmly annotates a memo on cabin air quality. You'd want someone to yell, "Does he even know we're falling?" That's Ricky, the rare voice of reason in a room drowning in pretense while the whole system crumbles. And yet, the tragedy of the Star Saga isn't chaos, it's ambition misfired. Not boldness, not leadership, just the hollow chase to appear competent, as if mere adequacy were the summit of human aspiration. Even that goal slips past him, time after time. He fumbles every opportunity like it's a rehearsal, missing moments where he could confront corruption, face a government in meltdown, or act decisively as ministers tumble like dominoes. Instead, his strategy is a tweet. The questions this sparks are glaring. When the house burns, why are you testing smoke detectors? It's almost masterful how someone can exude so little urgency amid catastrophe.